facilitator for the event tonight, and I'm also the Dean of the Faculty of Education. Before we begin, I would like to engage with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the lands on which Memorial University's campuses are situated are in the traditional territories of diverse Indigenous groups. We acknowledge with respect the diverse histories and cultures of the Beothuk, Mi'kmaq, Innu, and Inuit of this province. Well, I'm very excited to be here tonight. This is a brand new series called Let's Discuss, a new dialogue series on educational matters. Tonight, we have 5 panelists who represent different stakeholders. But before we begin, just a couple of housekeeping things. If you're new to WebEx, this platform that's hosting the event tonight is WebEx. If you would like to see all the panelists simultaneously, you'll see at the top right-hand corner, there's a toggle button. So if you click on that toggle button, you'll see 4 small squares in it. You'll be able to see all panelists at the same time. And secondly, we'll be asking participants to post questions in the Q&A. So that will happen after our panelists have had an opportunity to share their perspectives and views. So this new series is a partnership between the Faculty of Education at Memorial University and NLJ, the Newfoundland and Labrador Association. So I'm going to ask Mr. Dean Ingram to bring greetings and share some insights with us before we start the formal part of our program.
Well, thank you, Dr. Goodnow, and certainly thank you everyone for being here, and certainly most importantly, thank you to the panelists. There's no doubt that the 2021 school year is like one that no one has ever seen before, and dare I say it's one that we probably, at least at the onset, would rather not see again. But that being said, I want to say how proud I am of seeing all the good work that teachers have been doing to try and make this situation within our schools work and work well for students. And I just wanted to offer my congratulations to all of those teachers who are doing what they can to still deliver the best possible educational experience for students in what is certainly a different set of circumstances. With that in mind, Dr. Goodnow, thank you to the university for partnering with us on this, certainly appreciate it. And to the panelists, thank you for sharing your expertise. I'm looking forward to hearing the conversations.
Thank you so much, Dean. Just to remind people about the title of tonight's event, Reframing COVID-19, Finding New Opportunities in a New Normal. And as Dean said, none of us would have predicted or wished for COVID. But I think in this particular time, we are developing new ways of coping. And a term I heard today that resonated with me was critical hope. And I think what that means is looking at, new ways of being, new models and approaches in terms of education. So this is about the panelists and their views and about our participants who will be responding. So I'm going to take a moment first to ask each panelist to introduce themselves. And then we're going to come back to me as the facilitator. I will share the question that was posed to each panelist, and then they will have an opportunity to respond to the question. After each panelist has had an opportunity to respond to the question, then we will open the Q&A to participants. So I'm going to start with Dr. Christine Arnold to briefly introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me tonight. It's a real pleasure. I'm Christine Arnold, and I'm a faculty member and assistant professor in education at Memorial University of Newfoundland. My focus is on post-secondary studies and student services and affairs, but I am a former high school teacher. And so I think within this realm, I really am a boundary spanner, and that I participate in various levels of education within the province. And I'm excited to see you all here today.
Thank you, Christine. We appreciate that you're here tonight. Ms. Cheryl Gordon.
Hi, I'm the principal of Glovertown Academy. We're in central Newfoundland, and we're a K-12 system. We've got a little over 300 students in our system, and we service 5 communities. So we have a little bit of a different lens maybe from other schools in the province. We're, not similar to a large urban 10 to 12 school, and we're not similar to a sole charge school, but I'm sure we've got lots of commonalities through this pandemic together. I've been a teacher for 32 years now, and in the last 7 years, I've been an administrator. So it's very interesting to be involved in something like this at the end of my career. Thanks for including me.
Thank you, Cheryl. We appreciate that you're here this evening with us. Abby or Abigail.
Hi, everyone. My name is Abby Mitchell, and I'm a grade 12 student at Holy Spirit High School. And I'm their student council president, and I'm also president of the Interact Club. Interact is the high school version of Rotary, where we try and volunteer locally, nationally, and internationally. And I'm honored to be here tonight.
Thank you so much, Abigail. And we really are honored that you're here with us tonight as well. Mr. David Pine.
Hi, my name is David Pine. I'm a parent. I'm also a school council chair for McDonald Junior High in St. John's. We've got a fairly large school, approximately 800 kids. I've been involved, I guess, in school council since my son started kindergarten. So honored to be here and looking forward to the discussion.
Okay, thank you so much, David. And we have Miss Megan Roome.
Hi everyone, my name is Megan Roome. I teach grade 6 early French immersion at Villanova Junior High, which is in Conception Bay South, and we are a 5 to 8 school. I also volunteer time with the NLTA as well as the president of the Technology Education Special Interest Council. And I'd like to thank the NLTA and the Faculty of Education at MUN for having me here this evening.
Okay, thank you, Megan. That's great. So I'm going to share the question that was posed to each of the panelists. If the COVID-19 pandemic has taught us anything, I think most of us would agree that resilience is at the top of the list. So this particular first installment of Let's Discuss is designed as a platform for discussion about the pandemic, and it's required us in education to redefine how we teach and learn and look at the positives that have resulted from this. So in your particular role as a parent, teacher, administrator, each person here represents a different stakeholder group. The question specifically is, how have you needed to adapt to a changing education system, and what positive changes have come directly from that for you and others? So I'm going to start with Dr. Christine Arnold to respond to the question.
Thank you, Karen. As a faculty member at the university, I think we've seen the COVID-19 pandemic has really provided an opportunity for everyone to re-examine their teaching, their learning, and their supervision practices and processes. We've been provided a moment, essentially, to reconsider and make amendments and additions to improve our communications and our interactions with students in our online and remote environments. In training pre-service teachers and adult educators, what I found is intentionality has really been at the forefront when reconceptualizing the ways in which we introduce our students to their future professions. This is a different moment. We need to consider, how do we introduce students to a future profession in teaching or in adult education when essentially they may have reduced opportunities to interact within the field? With that in mind, I think what we've seen is reduced opportunities for some internships and placements, field experiences and workshops. But what we've really seen is an increased opportunity for constructing some accessible toolkits that ensure our students are recognizing the academic and social leaders in the field. They're forming networks, they're engaging in experiential and problem-based learning, and assembling resources and sources and mediating the media. This is an excellent time in many ways, because we've had a plethora of professional development opportunities at our fingertips. And this has also meant access for our students. I'm finding that there's ways we're connecting, for example, tonight, that we may not have done previously. And we're starting to see the similarities in our practice, as well as the dissimilarities where we can strengthen what we're doing every day. The research on practice and writing communities, UDL principles for universal design for learning, problem-based learning, self-directed learning, and some of the student development and adult development frameworks have really come to mind for all of us in the faculty. We're collaborating in new ways, and it's exciting to be able to really take a moment to think, how do we set up assessments in our classroom? How do we make sure that they're equitable for everyone? And how do we allow students to participate with various levels of interest and responsibilities at home? It's this moment that we really see the backgrounds of our students, and we start to see some of those emotional and social learning, as well as some of the academic cognizant learning that we knew was always occurring. This is where we can really educate the whole student. We have an excellent opportunity to look for students in new ways with regard to their learning and what they're coming to within our classrooms. Some of the ways that we've been doing this in the toolkit are testing applications for the student experience tools. We've been conducting online scavenger hunts, surveying existing policies and procedures, attending webinars and organized professional development events, and Twitter conversations that have been organized among folks across sectors, much like tonight. This has really provided a time to see what is out there for resources in the field that we may not have been examining. In all honesty, it's been a moment to take down and reconstruct what we've been doing for years. When have we ever been provided an opportunity to do this, where everyone's on the same playing field and everyone's a part of the conversation and is more willing to contribute and be honest and transparent about their teaching, learning, and supervision than right now? Thank you, Karen.
Thank you so much, Christine. We'll move to our next panelist, who is Cheryl.
So at the beginning of the shutdown back in March, it was pretty hard in those beginning days to find anything positive. And I gotta say, by Thanksgiving, we were Christmas tired. But after the initial shock of all that, what we found was that we had adapted to this new normal through 4 broad categories with a focus really on social emotional well-being. And that was through connection, compassion, ownership, and agency. And we're doing a lot of things that we've always done. We're doing more of it, and we're being innovative in the way that we do things. And it's like the saying goes, necessity is the mother of invention. And we've certainly had to change some of the things that we've done and how we do it. So during the scary uncertainty of those first few weeks, it was really hard to put on a brave face and lead. But I found that in our virtual staff meetings, people wanted to share how they were feeling. They wanted the connection. So we worked on that. And we reached out through social media, FaceTime, Google Meet, and we checked in with one another. We encouraged one another, staff, students, and families, everybody together. And then we recognized that we had gaps in our ability to reach a digital platform for teaching. And in response to that, we were so fortunate the districts leveraged professional learning opportunities for teachers and for the teaching staff. And then the Department of Education came on board and is now in the process of providing the tools that will support that. We've been very fortunate. Suddenly, we were more tech savvy, and we navigated the ways of connecting digitally. Last year, I taught the Family Studies program, and never in my career did I think that I'd be teaching students how to make cinnamon rolls through a live video. But there we were, hauling cinnamon rolls hot out of the oven, finally together, but we were miles away from each other, but we connected in that way. And that connection was so important through all of that, and it continues now. Our focus has been ensuring the well-being of students getting through this together. We practice mindfulness and meditation. We provide opportunities for students to share the roses in their days and the thorns. Your lens changes when you know a child has a difficult morning before coming to school. It brings out more of your compassion. So as we considered the return to school for staff and students for the fall, we kept compassion foremost in our thoughts. There were an awful lot of anxious feelings. And over the summer, we needed to decide what we wanted our students' days to look like. How were we going to physically distance within cohorts? How would students move about the building? Was it going to feel like a prison, like we were hearing from so many families? Early on, we decided that we were going to cut down on the amount of stuff that we had in the rooms, keep only a minimal number of resources on hand. So we did a complete overall haul of our building. We took a large space as a storage room. We took our lunch rooms and our staff room and converted those into classrooms for our biggest groups. And because we were able to do that, we created flexible learning environments that supported the distancing and supported the way that we were used to teaching. And now, K through 12, we've got beautiful homeroom situations where teachers move from class to class if they need, but students stay in their homeroom. Paradoxically, that all of a sudden became positive too. Who knew? We found that we've had fewer negative incidences during the transition time between classes and less tardiness. Students feel ownership of their rooms. It's a place to go where they feel a sense of belonging. Everyone now just seems a little more settled. And we extended the classroom then outside. We've been fortunate enough to be right alongside the town's recreational facilities and a walking park. The daily outdoor time has been beneficial for everybody, for their mental well-being, for their physical well-being. And this led our school council to come on board and explore the creation of an outdoor classroom space. I think one of the things that the new normal gave us permission to do was to think outside the box and maybe bend how we normally do things. At first, it was really important to take things slowly, get comfortable and proficient with the safety protocols, rather than jump into everything all at once. But now we have a sense of agency in where and how we engage in the curriculum. I'm seeing more authentic learning experiences occurring on the edge of a bog, in the playground and on the ball field, at the sandy beach at the park. And we're documenting all of these wonderful experiences and sharing them digitally with our families through social media, Google Classroom, and our school website. We've certainly seen a lot of uptake digitally that way. And the sharing and collaborating is also more important now than ever for our teaching and learning teams to support the academic, social, and emotional needs of students, particularly those students with complex needs, and of students that have been in unsupportive or even abusive homes for these past 6 months. And still, out of all of that came a glimmer of positive. The shift in medicine to virtual appointments further paved the way for schools to more frequently and more easily engage with medical specialists, behavior management specialists, social workers, etc., as a team of professionals to support the needs of these vulnerable students. And I could go on and on about the wonderful and positive things that have happened, but that's not to paint an unrealistic, rosy picture. We did experience challenges, and in this new normal, we're certainly grieving the loss of some of our old ways, particularly being able to gather, collaborate, celebrate across cohorts. And despite the opportunities that have arisen, we can't negate the fact that it has been hard on all of us, not unmanageable, but certainly hard. And through this year, for us, is going to be really important to remember to be kind and to stay connected in order to ease that sting of the hard. Thanks.
Thank you, Cheryl. I'm going to ask Abby to share her views tonight.
Thank you. I think the best place to start for me is talking about our online education between March and June. In my opinion, this time really taught students how and what they need to learn properly. I found out that I actually benefit from learning at home. I realized that for me, it was nice to be able to go at my own pace and choose how and when I learn. However, other students have told me they realized how much they need school and that in-person learning. So I think all in all, we learned a little bit about ourselves and our learning styles. For me, I realized why I come to school, and that's simply put the people, my friends, my teachers, the clubs, the sports, and some things you simply can't learn online. I think we've also realized that not all meetings have to be in person, and sometimes it's actually more beneficial to have those online like platforms that we're doing today. And I think we're also a lot better prepared to go online if that's ever necessary again versus what happened in March. And then moving on to in-person school, I think just to start off, we have much better security at school. And although masks being mandatory in high schools is a bit annoying, it doesn't just protect us from COVID-19, it protects us from the common cold or flu that a lot of us get when we return to school. We've also been able to reevaluate our schedule with staggered dismissals and a longer lunch, which was a positive I got a lot when asking fellow students. As a student council, we've also reevaluated how to do school activities. Our club has decided to do more spirit weeks and days to keep a happy spirit within our school, and we're trying to do more activities outside. We also have 2 permanent substitutes at our school, which is cool because when one of our regular teachers is out, we're used to the substitute and their teaching style. And I think the last and most important positive I'd like to address is the cancellation of public exams for this semester and the reevaluation of how teachers teach by leaning further away from tests and examinations. The cancellation of public exams for January has eliminated a major stress from the shoulders of semesterized students and trying to jam in all we've missed from last semester and the new curriculum for this semester. By the elimination of public exams and regular school exams, teachers are allowed to slow down their teaching and make sure that students understand the material in new and exciting ways without the looming thought of an exam in January. And with that thought, I encourage the school board and the government to not only cancel public exams for June, but indefinitely. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abby. I'm going to move to David.
Good evening. I guess teaching has always been seen as a collaborative effort between students, teachers, parents, and the community. If we've learned anything through the pandemic, it's that connection is the key to building, maintaining, and optimizing the teaching environment. Throughout the past few months, many students, teachers, and parents alike felt overwhelmed due in part to the isolated environment we found ourselves in, but also due to the uncertainty of what the future held in store. However, by working together, we were able to learn, tackle matters head on, and adapt in an ever-evolving post-pandemic environment. This process has built resiliency, elasticity into the teaching environment, and has led to some truly positive and inspiring changes, some of which I've outlined here. 1, more meaningful engagement from parents. This year, I have felt engaged as ever in my child's learning experience. This, I feel, is a function of the key role parents now play in preparedness, execution, and performance of their child's studies on a day-to-day basis. This level of enhanced engagement from parents can be attributed in large part to the enhanced level of interaction between teachers and parents. From receiving more updates to more online interactions, Google Classroom, PowerSchool, school websites. These platforms allow parents the opportunity to keep informed, respond to their child's level of effort, and understand the challenge assessments. In the post-pandemic environment, this level of interaction is a key, as it allows students and parents to know well in advance of mid-year or year-end marks if additional help or resources are needed to ensure your child's success. In addition, some cases we've learned what teaching methods our children respond best at, and we're able to communicate that with teachers to ensure success in this current year. Second, the evolution of communication. COVID-19 has evolved the way we communicate and helped everyone in teaching environment realize that there are other ways, and in some cases, better ways to keep in touch and stay informed. It is without question that going from a physical environment to a virtual one was a challenge for all of us. The technology being shared with us from the school and the district with parents in the role of IT learners. And we all had to use tools and techniques that were outside of our comfort zone. However, again, through resiliency and unending support from teachers, other parents, and even our kids, we were successful in engaging and involving. The willingness and desire to engage students virtually has allowed the frequency of communication to be more regular, and thereby it allowed us to remain more organized and in touch as parents. Third, the introduction of dynamic teaching environments. The pandemic allowed children to learn in an environment that suits them best. When at home, they could choose to work at a desk, on a couch, standing, etc. As a result of the success in those early months of the pandemic, it allowed some dynamics in the teaching environment to evolve so that children or parents with anxiety around going to school could continue to learn at home and be successful due to the newly accessible systems and tools. In addition, the pandemic allowed students the opportunity for more hands-on learning and other skills, baking, board games, cooking, laundry, the list goes on, and allowed us as parents to continue to find teachable moments in everyday life. Additional focus on mental health. With the closure of schools and the move to online learning, kids could learn at their own pace, thereby in some cases reducing a bit of the school-related stresses. In addition, with the move to a virtual environment, portions of our intense peer pressure from the school environment was alleviated, and thereby created a new perspective on balance and mental health. Without the 6 direct hours in school, plus school-related extracurricular activities, many students grew closer to family and to friends, and were able to be more spontaneous about the types of activity they engaged in. And finally, independent learning. The experience of distance education during the pandemic has highlighted the opportunity for students' independent learning. While students have always been used to being supervised, guided, and strictly scheduled in their schoolwork, school closures required students to use additional resources and tools and to think more independently in achieving the required outcomes. The ability to think and to act independently will allow these students to excel outside of the classroom and has prepared many of them for a future of success. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And now I'll invite Megan to share her views.
Thank you, Karen. As a classroom teacher, the in-class suspension was a very challenging few months, but from what I saw, teachers definitely rose to the challenge. One major positive that I witnessed was the collaboration between teachers, helping each other and lifting each other up in a virtual setting with a common goal, supporting our students. Today, more teachers are leveraging digital in the classrooms, which is creating more opportunities for deep learning for their students, while fostering the 21st century skills necessary for students to be successful later in life. Educators always strive for excellence. They go above and beyond for their students, and they're always looking for ways to improve their practices. This was so clearly evident during the in-class suspension. Pushed into the unknown, educators were determined to figure out new ways of doing things in order to continue to support their students from a distance. At the beginning of the in-class suspension, I felt that my master's work was really being put to the test. I have a master's in education from MUN in information technology, which essentially focused on the instructional design of online learning environments. It was daunting for me to take on the challenge of engaging my students online, so I can only imagine how other teachers were feeling who didn't have that educational background. I was also very fortunate to have had the majority of my students since the year prior. Fortunate because we had already built solid relationships and had focused on building our digital literacy skills, over the past year and a half. The in-class suspension really put an emphasis on how important student-teacher relationships are. Before I could plan any online lessons or activities, I needed for my students to want to show up to our online sessions. And I needed my students to know that I was there for them during our abrupt transition from in school to online. Without solid relationships, learning wasn't going to take place. And I was so impressed with their willingness to take on this new learning journey with me. Moving forward, during this school year, social emotional learning remains a focus in my classroom and throughout my school. As the president of the NLTA Technology Education Special Interest Council, I was also able to witness other teacher experiences from across the province. Throughout the in-class suspension, TESIC offered several virtual PL sessions on Google Meet and Google Classroom to assist teachers with their transition from in-person to online. And what I witnessed was humbling. Teachers took their learning into their own hands, identified their weaknesses, and sought out learning opportunities to better themselves in order to meet the needs of their students. Teachers from across the province were jumping at the opportunity to learn, so much so that we could meet the demand and our sessions filled within minutes. I would say that this was a major positive throughout the whole experience, connecting with hundreds of teachers from across our province with a common goal, supporting our students. As teachers, we need a model for our students that challenges are simply new learning opportunities, and that is exactly what happened here. Learning didn't only happen during scheduled professional learning sessions. Many teachers reached out to their professional learning networks for help, to share information, to answer questions, to ask one another for support. These professional learning networks have since grown. Connections continue to be made, and teachers are collaborating more and more beyond their physical building. Needing to adapt so quickly to an online learning environment definitely came with its challenges. However, I believe that it brought us closer together as a teaching and learning community, and it put an emphasis on what is truly important, which is developing relationships to help each other through our challenges and to grow and learn together. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan, and thank you everyone for sharing your views and perspectives. Now I would like to invite our participants to pose a question of our panelists. I'm monitoring the question and answer section of our WebEx platform. So if anyone has a question, certainly encourage you to post at this time. In the meantime, while we're waiting, maybe I'll ask Christine, and I know Christine the best because Christine is part of the Faculty of Education like me. Christine, I'm wondering if you could comment. We shifted in March. We shifted as a university very nimbly from online face-to-face to online and remote teaching. So what did you learn in the spring semester that informed what you're doing now in the fall semester?
Sure. Thank you, Karen. It was an interesting trial period, if you will. I think we learned quite a bit about how this spring and summer semester would proceed regarding what occurred. First of all, I'd say that I really did find the value in reaching out to students in our courses and making sure that they were all right and if they needed assistance. I think that dialogue was something that we may not have always had before in such intentionality, and it was really important. Also, we found flexibility. We found flexibility in our assessments and our assignments, as well as our deadlines. We realized, and I think that we've moved forward with knowing that, students are always at the forefront of what we do, and that it's really important that we recognize what's occurring in their lives and make sure that we are, amending our practices as such. I also found the value of just-in-time learning and advice and policies and procedures. Students needed to, at times, have instructions repeated for those just-in-time moments. They were getting buried, and they probably always get a little buried. So this was a large learning opportunity for all of us. We realized that policies and procedures, I think at the time of the university and continuing, are meant to be reconsidered. And at times we need to ensure that maybe what we've always traditionally done may not be serving those that we are working with in this moment. And so that was really important as well. We needed to be sure that we were on top of the policies and procedures as faculty members in ways that we might not have been before. We needed to be able to answer those questions and know what the university was moving forward with so that we all had the same communication lines. I'm sure that's true for everyone here tonight. Making sure that we were aware of what was occurring and that we were all on the same page was really a necessity. And not only that, I think we really realized the value of how are we going to bring different voices into our classrooms when we may not be able to do so with the opening of a door. And that was really important as well. We needed to realize how we could include folks, whether it was via webinar, videos, whether it was informal chat sessions, phone calls. Like I said earlier, if they were scavenger hunts about what particular institutions were doing, and those experts in the field that really needed an introduction, and we had to find different unique ways of doing that. Personally, I found that music helped. I found that visual art helped. And I also found other wonderful softwares that were available with regard to brainstorming and diagramming and showcasing all of our thinking in the moment that we would normally do in a classroom, but we needed to do online or in a remote environment. I'll leave it there because there's so much to say, but I want to give an opportunity for all of the others as well.
Okay, we do have a few questions showing up in the Q&A. I'm going to direct this question to Cheryl. What was the biggest gain overall from being in lockdown this past spring? And this is from Kelly Locke. So what was the biggest gain overall from being in lockdown this past spring?
So I think that as a K-12 system, we had some disparity in technology proficiency, I'll call it, from our K-6 to our 7 through 12 staffs. And I think that the biggest gain in terms of our staff was that we were provided with professional learning around the Google platform. And that really was a game changer for a number of things. So that now every teacher in our school is using Google Classroom. They have websites set up. They're interacting with students daily through Google Classroom. It's become quite a powerful movement for, particularly in our K-6. Our 7 to 12 was using it regularly before. For families and students, the Google Classroom and that entire platform has been a game changer for them too. I've heard parents say things like, well, now I know what my children are doing in their classes because I can see it. I'm seeing these things on Google Classroom. I'm getting the daily summary of the homework. And that's been amazing for us.
Okay, thank you so much. Would any of the other panelists like to respond to that question? Megan.
I would have to agree with Cheryl on that. The amount of technology that is being used now as opposed to before has definitely increased. But I would also say that teachers having the opportunity to seek out different areas throughout the in-class suspension, and of course learning more about the technology that they can use in the classroom, but also having the time to explore other interests that they had that they didn't have time to explore before, and creating their own professional learning goals and learning plans. And we do that every year. We make our goals and we don't always get to explore everything that we want to. And I found that this time really gave us the opportunity, no excuses. We have the time now. What is it that we want to learn? And I found that through my professional learning network online, I was seeing teachers exploring all kinds of new and different ways of engaging their students. And they were also sharing all of that with others. So like I said before, I found that our community really tightened, more sharing was happening. But I think that it was excellent that we had that opportunity to explore our own interests and learn some things that we had on the to-do list.
Thank you, Megan. Abby, did you indicate that you wanted to respond to that question?
I didn't, but I can say something.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I think the biggest takeaway for students, I mean, I mentioned it a little bit before, was just like how we each individually learn and how we each individually study the best. I found that when teaching myself and learning myself, like I have to do it at the beginning of the week in the morning. I can't wait and procrastinate and do it in the afternoon or it won't get done. Like I need to wake up, eat, and do it. And I think that kind of happened for everyone. You learned when you best do work, when is your most productive time. And I think that really carried over into September for when we best study and when we best learn.
Thank you. David.
Yeah, I would say the biggest gain that I've seen or taken away from this is the importance of connection. And connection doesn't have to be the traditional face-to-face. There's so many other tools and resources that are now available, so many other ways of communicating, and for parents to be engaged at the right time and to play an important role. And I think the one thing that as parents that we've taken from this is the amount of available resources that we do have out there now, and that teachers are willing to share. That's the most important part. I find teachers are willing to share everything that they have and what's happening in the class. And for a parent, that's especially important in ensuring that your child is able to succeed. So for me, again, it's the importance of just making sure that we all know that we have a role to play, that the most important piece of that is staying connected with everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much, David. I'm going to pose this question for those of you who are working with learners in any capacity. What changes, and this is from Shelby Arnold, what changes have you seen among your learners and their ability to communicate about their mental health issues? What new opportunities has this created? So what changes have you seen among your learners and their ability to communicate about their mental health needs? What opportunities has this created? Cheryl, would you like to share some insights here?
So we've put a real focus on mental well-being at school this fall because we had been away from school for such a long period of time. So we put in some practices, and teachers could choose how they wanted to tackle the practices. So it would be things like doing some mindfulness, deep breathing. The rose and the thorn activity is one of the ones that really sticks in my mind. And I love going into the classroom and hearing this. So the students would talk about something positive in their life. And they could also, if they wish, talk about a thorn in their life. It might have been that they didn't have, Cheerios for breakfast. It could be something as simple as that. But that little opportunity opened up a whole world of opportunity for students to talk about their mental health needs. So if something came up in that session, the teacher could, quietly take care of it, maybe a referral to guidance, maybe it was just a little chat with a child during recess time. But learners, all of our students have that opportunity through those little activities that we brought into classrooms since the pandemic. We were doing, some of that mindfulness before, but now there's a real focus on it. And children have responded quite well to that.
Thank you, Cheryl. Christine, would you like to respond to this one as well?
I would. I think I want to say three things about this at the university, what we've been seeing. First of all, I think that this has given us all, our students as well as ourselves and our staff and administration, permission to speak about our mental and our medical health concerns as they arise and have them recognized legitimately. In a space where I think the second piece is we've had more services on campus that have become accessible. And what I mean by accessible in that sense is that you may not have to walk through the door and present these issues in a face-to-face manner, which for some folks can be a lot more welcoming. We've had group sessions occurring. We've had one-on-one sessions occurring. We've also had various means for students to improve their academic capacities when it comes to various anxieties. So I think we also need to recognize that these services on our campus went through a shift. And it was really interesting to see those variations and for them to be promoted to faculty and staff and administration in ways that we may not all have been aware of them previously. My research area is student affairs and services. And so this was really heartwarming for me to see that all of my colleagues were aware of what was occurring as well on campus and what's always been there and what was new and exciting. And I think the third piece is that there's been a collection of communities on campus that have been conducting research in this area. This has really opened an opportunity for grants and funding and partnerships with the boards of education, as well as other organizations and associations within education and post-secondary education, to look at this and to form communities of practice. This has become a really exciting moment, not only to look at our students with disabilities, but also to look at those who may be experiencing other forms of mental health and anxieties that may not always be on the radar and may not always be presented in a way that makes them studyable as well as assistable in many ways. So I'd say those are the three takeaways that I've seen. I think they're all very positive, and they've really brought to light something that may not always be as shining and presented to us in such a formal way as it has been this last few semesters.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Would any of the other panelists like to respond to that question? If not, I have a question for Megan. This is specifically for Megan. You mentioned the importance of teacher-student relationships. Can you tell us more about how you solidify teacher-student relationships? How do other teachers strengthen teacher-student relationships from your observation?
Thanks. I always try to make a point that at the beginning of the year, in the first few weeks, that I really get to know my students, learn more about them, their likes, their dislikes. Something that I really enjoy doing with my students to get to know them better and to strengthen our relationship is to incorporate some team building activities. I often use some STEM activities with my students to present them with a little challenge, and get them working together. And that way I can also see how they work with others, how they communicate their ideas, and putting them in these, I guess, less intense learning environments or activities. I find that their personalities come out a little more, and we can get to know each other better that way. I also just enjoy having chats with my class, talking with them, seeing how they're doing that morning, having a morning check-in, giving them the opportunity to speak if they choose to do so. I enjoy bringing my students outside together. We have beautiful school grounds and trails nearby, enjoying that time outside together, and just having informal chats I find is very important. So you're not always speaking to your student in a learning situation, but just, having a seat next to a student, having a chat during recess, asking them about the activities that they're involved in outside of school, knowing what they're up to, what their goals are, any recent accomplishments that they've had. And I find that that's an excellent way to build student-teacher relationships. At a school level, we've been making sure that everybody is focusing on the social emotional learning, and again, getting outside and enjoying our school grounds. Taking this school year, the beginning to the school year, a little slower than most, and making sure that we're really getting to know our students. As I mentioned earlier, in the online environment, we needed to make sure our students felt that they were being heard, and we wanted them to show up to our online sessions. This is a whole new group of students, so I need to make sure that we have strong relationships now, because we don't know when or if we would end up in an online environment again. So incorporating, I think Abby mentioned this, theme days and spirit weeks and fun activities for the whole school to get involved in together, to feel that school community is really important. I know it's difficult now because our classes are in cohorts, and we don't mix as much as we would normally do so. So it's really important to still feel that sense of school spirit, that sense of community. So things that we can do to build that and bring us closer together are definitely important as well. And we'll continue to strive towards all of that for the remainder of the school year.
Thank you, Megan. This question is for David, and this is being posed by Jill Hendrigan. It was great to hear about the parent experience. I'm wondering about the response to families who struggled. What lessons have we learned that could be scaled up or scaled, sorry, for those who struggled?
Good question. I think what we've learned, and from being on a council, and what we even as a parent, I think we all thought that we had to become teachers and to replace the teachers. And I think the reality of that after day one is we can't replace teachers. I think we play an important role. What we encouraged, in many of my own friends and that have kids and were struggling with, the whole idea of teaching and trying to deliver a curriculum to your kids at home and as that sort of thing, is we took the view, well, we can't do everything and we don't know everything, but as long as we do something. So I think for the most important thing to take away from it was, as long as we were active with our children in the form of academic lessons or sessions, or whether it was just finding teachable moments when you're doing a puzzle or reading a book together, I think the big thing was we needed to take some of the pressure off of ourselves as parents to deliver and think that we had to become teachers overnight, because obviously we couldn't and we can't. How do we scale that? I'm not really sure the answer to that. As a parent, I know what I find is available now. I find there is more resources available online through the school. I find that teachers, again, are willing to share more, whether it's online or in the form of sending things home. So I think for each parent, it's different, and it's going to be different. And I think this has taught us that we really need to reach out with our individual teachers, our kids' teachers, and to see what works best for everybody.
Okay, thank you. The next question is from Sana Jamel. Moving forward, what are some of the areas that, according to you, require better planning with regards to teacher professional development? This is a passion area of mine as well. So I'd love to respond, but I'm not a panelist tonight. So what are some of the areas that might require better planning in relation to teacher professional development? So we can hear from the perspective of a teacher herself, or from the principal who facilitates and supports others' professional learning. Also, Christine, who works in a university setting and is involved in adult and teacher professional development and learning. Sure. Okay, Megan.
Well, I was lucky enough to work with Karen a few years ago on an action research project. So I think we're on the same mindset here. I share a few passions on that as well. I think that moving forward with planning professional learning for teachers would require more input from teachers. Like I said, one of the benefits, one of the big takeaways from the in-class suspension was the fact that teachers were seeking out new learning opportunities that they didn't otherwise have the opportunity to engage with. We are lifelong learners. We want to continue to learn more. We want to continue to better ourselves professionally. And we often speak today about providing our students with voice and choice when in the classroom, in their learning setting. I think that's also important for teachers when it comes to their learning. So including teachers more in professional development organization, or allowing teachers the time to pursue areas that they are passionate about or interested in, and not necessarily just partaking in professional development that is given to us to complete. So I think a nice balance of the two would be great, so that we can continue to follow our passions and learn about new things as they come up.
Okay, thank you, Megan. Cheryl?
I totally agree with Megan. I think it's that opportunity to choose and to follow a passion. But I think in addition to that, the opportunity to virtually get together as cohorts of people to be able to discuss what you've learned and put it in practice and then troubleshoot issues. Those would be also rich conversations to have if those opportunities were given in addition to just the PL.
Okay, thank you. Christine.
Yes, sorry. I also think so, Santa, knowing that you have a focus on technology within your own work, I think we've realized that access to technology and resources is not the same for everyone or every family. And this is particularly useful when we look at our various schools and the various areas in which they sit in the environments. I think we've needed to realize that there is quite a variation there and it needs to be addressed at times. And there needs to be some scaffolding for some of those issues that have arisen. Also, I think similar to including some of the teachers within professional development, I think we need to include our students. Personally, I think that our students function as connectors, as co-constructors and collaborators. And so when we teach pre-service teachers and adult educators, we need to be sure that we're drawing on them for some of their experiences. For some of them, they've worked in other realms, they've worked with various students, they have specific expertise that they're bringing to the table. And it's always really wonderful to include that within our teaching and to hear their voices and to bring them in, as guests within those spaces. Also, I think we've realized the environmental conditions and variations in learning, as I said, and this includes the inclusion of stakeholders. This is a moment where I think we've included more stakeholders within our teaching and learning than we probably ever have. I think we've heard such a diversity of voices that have really been brought together to critically analyze curriculum, to critically analyze assessment, to look at communications, information, and particularly policies and procedures in a way that we haven't done before. And so I think this is really important when we look at professionalization, especially for pre-service teachers and adult educators as well.
Thank you, Christine. We have about 3 minutes left in our session. It was scheduled for an hour. There is one question directed to you, Cheryl, that you might want to give a very quick response to before we conclude tonight. Cheryl, could you speak to your younger population at your school? There was a lot of fear for how they would transition back into face-to-face instruction. How did you find they transitioned and what best helped them?
We actually didn't find too bad of a transition back to school for our younger population. They were so happy to get in the classroom and see their teachers and see their peers, friends they may not have seen in months, that there really wasn't a whole lot of concern with them coming back to school. Megan, I don't know if you guys found that in your school also. But boy, there was a lot of joy as kids came into the building. I stand on bus duty every day outside, and as they came in, they were skipping. So, not a transition problem at all. We didn't find, to be honest.
Thank you, Cheryl. Well, we're almost at the end of our hour. It's obvious that all of you are very committed and caring educators, and Abby, it was a pleasure to have you be part of this group, and we really appreciate your contributions to this and everyone's contributions. On behalf of the Faculty of Education at Memorial University and NLTA, the Newfoundland Labrador Teachers Association, one of our best and strongest partners and supporters. We couldn't do what we do without teachers and without their support. I want to thank you all for being here tonight and sharing your perspectives. I also want to thank participants who in tonight to listen to this session. Stay tuned. There will be other dialogue series sessions. We hope to offer 4 to 5 throughout each academic year. This is also an event that's sponsored by MUN Alum Days. So as a dean of the faculty, I'm very interested as well in connecting to our alumni and bringing you folks in to support what we're doing and sharing in partnerships. So thank you, everyone. I wish you a good evening and stay safe.